Hey guys, I'm Hyozi. Last time I managed to beat fossil fighters using only Earth Vivosaurs, and it was the easiest run I've had thus far. So this time, I'll be using water element Vivosaurs, who I assume lean more towards poison damage because of Vivosaurs like Angato and Ankleo. Water Vivosaurs are strong against fire, but weak against air. Knickknack will probably be harder for me this run than he was in my fire-only run, as his whole team is strong against mine. The rules for this challenge are simple. I'm only allowed to use water element Vivosaurs in battle. If the story requires me to have other Vivosaurs on my team, I can include them. However, I'm not allowed to use their abilities in any way, meaning no attacking and no buffing. If I'm forced to use a non-water element Vivosaur and they are the only one remaining on my team, then that fight will be treated as a loss and I'll have to restart it. I'm also playing with level caps, meaning my Vivosaur's levels cannot exceed the level of the current level cap, usually dictated by the ace of the next level up fight. If one of my Vivosaurs has a higher level than the level cap, I cannot use it in battle until the level cap increases. Finally, I'm not allowed to use glitches, cheats, or exploits in any way. Before we begin, I'll have a poll on the channel for what videos I should make next, after completing the final element-only video. The choices are size only, meaning I can only use Vivosaurs of a specific size, such as large or small. Class only, meaning I can only use Vivosaurs of a specific class, such as attack class or support class. Or diet only, meaning I can only use Vivosaurs with a specific diet, such as only carnivores or herbivores. Whatever choice gets the most votes will be the first runs I'll do, with second place being after, and finally third place is the last. So let me know what challenges you'd like me to do next. Now, let's begin the challenge. This time, I picked Tricera as my favorite dinosaur, as they're the only water element choice. This gives me a dark blue shirt, black shorts, and a yellow hat. Unlike Fire and Earth, water Vivosaurs don't start appearing until Rivet Ravine, meaning now I have to skip over both Greenhorn Plains and Knotwood Forest before the challenge can officially begin. Once I unlock Rivet Ravine, I can begin reviving the water element Vivosaurs, Electro, Nazor, and unfortunately for me, the rare Suko. Electro has okay stats, but lacks both support effects and a fourth utility move. Plus, Electro's third move is a pure super poison, doing no damage on its own. I'll use Electro because I have to, but I don't see them sticking around after this chapter. Nazor is very fragile, but more than makes up for that with their abilities. First, Nazor's support effects lower all of my opponent's stats by 15%, which isn't that good, but anything is fine for now. More importantly though, Nazor has two poison moves with low FP costs, one of them having an 80% chance to poison, as well as the healing move Life Charge. Life Charge heals 80 health each use, and since my Vivosaurs are still pretty low health at the moment, that's practically a full restore. Nazor by far has the most potential out of these three, mainly because of that heal skill. Suko has the same attack and just slightly more health and defense than Electro. However, the main difference between the two is Suko's second attack, Infuriating Combo, which is a 100% accurate Super Excite with a kind of low FP cost. So Suko can set up a Super Excite, and then next turn someone else can apply a poison, or even a Super Poison, that's completely unavoidable. I also expect Suko's stats to grow more as the run continues, so they may end up as a good frontliner. The BB Grunts were easy, so I'll move on to Holt. Holt in his first fight has his usual Tricera as well as the Air Elasmith. On my first turn, I bring Suko to the front since my forced V-Raptor can't attack, and hit Elasmith with 2 Suko bites and an Infuriating Combo to take them out with Suko at half health. Suko manages to take a Tricera combo, get healed by Nazor, then get knocked by a second Tricera combo. Nazor is forced to attack from the back row since V-Raptor is in front, so I use Toxic Chitter to poison Tricera. Except I somehow don't get the 80%, nor the two 50% that I try after V-Raptor gets knocked by a crit Tricera combo. So Suko comes forward and hits Tricera twice with a Suko bite, and leaves the finishing blow to Nazor. It doesn't get much easier from there though. Rex's Nodo takes out Suko before going down, and Snivels, though failing to knock out any of my team, was still scary with his Karchar and Air Serrato. So now we're back to Holt again, this time with an Air Coatless who could easily take out Nazor with a long-range attack. I have Electro in front this time. thinking that although Electro Combo uses all of my FP, it does the most damage, so I can try to take out my opponent faster. Tricera hits Nazor and Electro once each before switching for Coatless, who takes about 90% from 2 Electro combos, and then takes out Electro instead of Nazor. Holt then switches again with Pachi, who survives Suko's infuriating combo, so I need to take them out with Nazor. Tricera is now in front, but I know they'll survive a Suko bite and enter Parting Blow. So instead of doing that and losing the fight, I just choose not to attack that turn. Nazor gets taken out, but now I have just enough FP to take out the once again switched in Coatless, just barely survive a crit Tricera combo, and then finish off Tricera. I managed to win that fight with just 5 health remaining, but we're still not done. McJunker is next with his Air Kentro and, more importantly, Serato. Serato makes a beeline for my Nazor in our first fight, taking them out and leaving me with no way to win. Our second fight, I know that I need to keep Nazor alive, so Suko moves to the front instead of Electro. Luckily, Serato can't take out Nazor in just 2 attacks, so I can Suko bite one turn, then heal Nazor back up to full the next, with an extra 30 FP that I have from Suko's attack costing less. The problem, though, is the damage. Each Suko bite deals 15 damage to Serato, who has 125 health, so it takes 7 Suko bites, 5 life charges, and 1 infuriating combo just to defeat Serato. Next is Kentro, who I hit with 1 Suko bite before McJunker learns that I'm not losing Nazor and starts attacking Suko. Infuriating combo brings Kentro down to a little under half. Suko then gets taken out, I fail another 80% Toxic Chitter, and defeat Kentro with an Electro combo. That leaves just Steigi, who's a fire with low health, so of course I win. I literally just started, and I'm already having to rely heavily on healing. I'm dreading this coming Knickknack fight. Now I have Bottoms Up Bay open to me, granting me a plethora of new options for my team. I revive Krona, Elasmo, Plesio, Shoni, Onyx, Django, and Futabi. The rare Delta is also available here, but I can just get them next chapter as a normal fossil and save a lot of time. Krona is the most powerful water Vivosaur in the game, having the highest attack as well as health on par with Seismo at the same level. Krona also has some of the highest cost attacks of the water Vivosaurs, with their lowest attack taking all of my current FP. However, that downside will go away as my FP recharge increases, and even now if I can take out my enemies quickly enough, then it just doesn't matter. The only other issue is their horrendous support effects, but as long as I keep Krona in the AZ, then I don't have to worry. Elasmo is almost a second Krona, except with cheaper moves, a 50% enrage skill, and no support effects at all. So if I need 2 hard hitters, then Elasmo is a good sidekick to Krona. Plesio has pitiful stats, okay support effects, and 2 poison moves. Nazor is just better than Plesio since they can heal, so Plesio probably won't be used. Shoni has health similar to Krona, but since they're a slow developer, Shoni's attack is initially low. Shoni also has attacks that cost even more than Krona, as well as similar negative support effects, so I won't be using them for now. Onyx is another slow developer like Shoni, except as a close-range attacker instead of a long-range one. Onyx does have Excite and Poison skills. However, I have Suko for that, so Onyx is instantly outclassed. Django claims to be an AZ Vivosaur, but doesn't have enough health compared to my other options. Django does have a 40% crit rate, which does make up for their low attack, but unfortunately lacks a 4th move. I was really hoping that Django would have Harden, but oh well. Finally, Futabi is a good addition to my team, even though they're a Japanese Vivosaur. Futabi's support effects drop enemy defense by 25%, on top of a very cheap attack and the power scale ability. That more than makes up for disabling my team skills, especially since I don't have enough max FP to use most team skills at the moment anyways. Moving into the Knickknack quests, Rex was almost a problem with his Noto and Megath. I almost take out Megath with my first attack, but then Megath and Noto start confusing my team. By the end, Krona and Nazor are almost defeated, but luckily I still win. Snivels was actually a problem with just how hard he hits. After taking out his Futabi, Snivels almost takes out Krona with a Karchar Fury. This forces me to start healing Krona in between attacks, eventually ending when Krona has enough health to survive a Karchar attack and then finish them off. Finally, Vivian, while having her own Elasmo, just wasn't much of a fight. That lets me move on to Woolbeard. I don't know why I keep being cautious about Woolbeard. Yes, he has a strong Krona and Elasmo, but he doesn't attack until his second turn. Except that's not entirely true, because this time he waited even longer. I wanted to take out Plesio first, and then use Futabi's power scale to steal Woolbeard's FP boost, meaning both of us did nothing turn 1. Turn 2, I failed to take out Plesio and expected to lose Nazor next turn. However, Woolbeard decided that 200 FP just wasn't enough for him, and didn't attack. Okay, so if Woolbeard won't attack, then I'll just start hitting Elasmo and power scale every turn to keep robbing FP. Only once I hit Elasmo with a crit from Krona does Woolbeard finally start attacking. And even then, he ignores my low health Nazor and instead hits my Krona. I take out Elasmo next turn since, funnily enough, a crit Krona bite is exactly half of Elasmo's health, and then bring Futabi forward to take out Plesio in the same turn. All Woolbeard has left is his own Krona, which then goes down in 2 attacks from my returned Krona. All that's left is my level up fights. My first opponent is Ellie, but his only real threat is his heir Coatless. I have to heal a few times before I can take out Coatless, but once I do, the rest of Ellie's team is no issue. Next is Sally, with her heir Serato and Goyo. Serato begins by knocking Krona to the EZ after dealing about a third with Serato combo. Eventually, Krona returns and begins to chip away at Serato between heals, before being knocked again. I debate whether to heal Futabi, or to try to take out Serato with a Steer the Storm, and decide it's safer to heal since I'll probably lose if I fail to KO Serato. Krona comes back again to finish off Serato, and then Futabi uses Power Scale to steal enough FP to then heal Krona. After that, I can take out Goyo and U-Raptor with no issue, and then move on to the Level Master Knickknack. Knickknack is where this challenge went from hard to nearly impossible. Knickknack has a full air team, with his Elasmith in front, supported by Styraco, and most importantly, M-Raptor. Since Knickknack's total health is 299, there's no way I can go first, letting Knickknack hit me with a team skill frame 1 every fight. My first attempt, I decided to bring a new team of Django, Futabi, and Plesio, since I didn't want my main Vivosaurs to get too much experience and go past the level cap next chapter. What I didn't account for was Elasmith's team skill doing about half damage to most of my team. I know M-Raptor will be a major issue, so I take them out as fast as I can, only to lose both Futabi and Plesio the turn after, leaving Django alone and powerless. Looks like I have no choice but to bring in my best. Round 2, Krona unfortunately doesn't do enough damage to defeat M-Raptor in one hit, causing Krona to get knocked after a powerful Elasmith combo, and force Elasmo forward. Elasmo can take out M-Raptor next turn, but then takes huge damage from Elasmith's Phobia Beam and Styraco's Styraco combo. This then traps me in a healing loop with Nazor for 10 long minutes, where every turn I'm forced to heal my AZ Vivosaur, and can only squeeze out an occasional attack when they're guaranteed to survive the next hit. That healing loop only ends when Nazor's healing isn't enough to outpace Elasmith's damage, and Elasmo gets taken out. Even though Krona can take out Elasmith next turn, they don't do enough damage to take out the full health Styraco. This fight makes me realize that I need to keep my full team until I defeat Elasmith, and if someone gets knocked, I need Nazor to stay in the SC, or else I just can't win. My third try, I bring Futabi instead of Krona for their support effects to hopefully take out Elasmith faster, their low FP broadside attack, and their power scale to steal FP from Knickknack after taking out M-Raptor. Futabi's Winding Snap does about half to M-Raptor before they get knocked, and Elasmo fails to take them out next turn. Elasmo then gets crit by Elasmith and finished off by Styraco, leaving just Nazor and a severely weakened Futabi who just can't get the job done. Fight 4, Futabi and Elasmo still fail to take out M-Raptor in one hit. but Elasmo is able to survive long enough from not getting crit to defeat M-Raptor the turn after. With Futabi back as well, I'm able to steal Knickknack's FP and use it to heal Elasmo in another healing loop, until they eventually get knocked and I lose Futabi the same turn. The fifth fight goes even worse, as Futabi has just too little health to reliably survive the early stages. This forces me to first level up both Futabi and Elasmo, before I continue banging my head against the wall that is Knickknack. Attempt 6, Elasmo once again fails to defeat M-Raptor turn 2, so I just cut the fight there and move on. Attempt 7 was the worst yet, as Futabi gets taken out from a crit Elasmith combo on Knickknack's second turn. The 8th fight is where Elasmo can finally take out M-Raptor, so now it's back to the healing loop until Elasmo gets knocked again and Styraco takes out Futabi. Fight 9 goes as usual, with me taking out M-Raptor and then healing until I lose to another crit. Fight 10 is different in that I get crit and lose Elasmo before even entering my healing loop. It's only on attempt number 11, after 5 minutes of healing, I'm finally able to start hitting Elasmith with Elasmo and Futabi. Another 7 minutes later, Futabi is knocked for the 100th time, and Elasmo has enough health to attack and not die next turn. Then, Knickknack, in his infinite wisdom, moves Elasmith to the EZ and brings forward Styraco. Styraco, who can't hit as hard as Elasmith can. Styraco, who lets me heal up enough to finally take out Elasmith with Elasmo. After that, I can then defeat Styraco with a crit of my own, and finally put an end to the Knickknack nightmare. Knickknack was definitely the worst opponent out of all my videos. If I didn't have Nazor to just spam heals turn after turn, there's no way I ever would have won that. I was actually tempted to revive Delta 2 at one point, since counter prevents damage and returns it to the attacker. And despite being only 40% accurate, I was willing to try it since Knickknack at one point got at least 10-20% crits in a row. So, how difficult could getting like 4 40%s be? With the BB base unlocked, I have access to 2 new Vivosaurs, being Delta and Dilofo. Delta's attack is pretty good, and its health isn't too bad either, and they have the FP Plus ability. However, Delta has no support effects, and only their third move does more than damage, and even then it's only a 30% confuse. Finally, Delta has the counter ability, which I'm just not a big fan of. It's only 40% accurate and requires Delta to be the one hit. Dilofo's stats are pretty similar to Delta's, and they also have the FP Plus ability. But Dilofo has support effects that lower my opponent's stats by 10%. Not amazing, but anything is better than nothing. Dilofo also has cheaper moves than Delta, though they don't have any gimmick with them. Nazor is way better than Dilofo at the moment since they can heal, but Dilofo is a good Vivosaur to hold on to. I don't want my main Vivosaurs to over-level, so I make a team of other Vivosaurs that I don't really use to fight my way up to Bullwart. The team consists of my Shoni, Django, Plesio, Electro, and Onyx. It's not a very strong team, but I'm hoping they can at least make it past Rex and Snivels. However, since I lose to Rex on my first try, I dig up some fossils to level up my team, and then easily defeat him next time. Snivels isn't as easy though, as his Orano manages to confuse my Electro in our first fight. So for our next fight, I bring Shoni, Dilofo, and Plesio, since Dilofo's FP Plus ability could help with using Shoni's team skill. I hit Karchar on my first turn, but since Shoni is a late bloomer, the attack doesn't do much damage. Afterwards, we just stare at each other for 2 turns, until we can both use our team skills. I charge up my team skill a second time, and take out Orano and almost Acro. I lose Dilofo, but then I can just trade Plesio for Acro and take out Karchar next turn. Vivian I was expecting to be a huge problem because of her Styraco and Hypsy. While I did have to heal stall a little bit, her Styraco only used its weakest attack, so I was never in any real danger. Bullwart's team is next, made up of 2 fire elements and an earth element, so I focus on taking out Salto first, while Bullwart focuses on my Nazor. I heal Nazor as much as I can, especially on turns that Bullwart switches, and eventually take down Salto. I lose Nazor the next turn, but his fire elements don't put up much of a fight after that. Now it's time for my level up fights. Jane looks a bit scary at first with her 2 air elements, but Shanshan and V-Raptor are both fragile and just can't do enough damage to me to be concerning. Mrs. Wriggle has her air coatless acting as a threat, but it doesn't attack, so I just take it out, and the rest of her team follows shortly after, leaving just Dr. Diggins. I have to defeat Dr. Diggins in 10 turns or less. However, his bulky Stego makes that a bit of a problem. Luckily, my first Krona bite crits. However, Stego only takes about a third. I lose Nazor next turn, but that gives me just enough FP to use 2 snapping jaws on Stego and take them out. Once Stego was defeated, I pretty much won, as all Dr. Diggins has left is his Fire Shuno and Fragile Dilofo, who both go down easily. Now I have Mount Lava Flow fully unlocked, but it, for obvious reasons, has no water Vivosaurs. So instead I have to get them from the newly discovered Mole's Secret Tunnel. So I revive Chelon and Tricera. Chelon has pretty low health and attack, but has a very important strength in its support effects and attacks. Chelon cuts the defense of my opponent's AZ Vivosaur in half, making it very powerful against Vivosaurs with high defense. Chelon also has very low cost attacks, with their team skill only costing 130 FP to use. Chelon certainly isn't bad, however boosting my own attack is better than lowering my opponent's defense. I learned that in my last 2 videos comparing Guan and Kamso. Tricera, I'm very happy to finally get. Tricera has amazing stats across the board, with health, attack, and defense rivaling Elasmo. Tricera also boosts my lead's attack by 40%, and can then boost it by another 20 points with Inflame. There's no doubt that Tricera is immediately going on my team, and has a high chance of staying for the rest of the run. Now that those revivals are done, I head to Mount Lava Flow for my Duna fight. I replace Nazor with Tricera since I'm hoping that defeating my opponent fast enough will cancel out the need for healing. That's not how it actually goes though. Because of how much Duna switches around her team, I end up losing Krona before taking anyone out. After that loss, I bring Elasmo forward, beat Duna, switch in Tricera to take out a Dinomatin, lose Tricera, and then finish off the last Dinomatin. That was actually pretty close though, which means that I'm not ready to leave Nazor's healing behind. The Frigi fight after goes as easily as it normally does. I bring Nazor back for the healing, but also bring Plesio to super poison and bypass Frigi's defense. Except I forgot that Frigi can just switch out to remove the super poison. To counter that, I just have to apply it immediately after a switch happens. Meaning I need to super poison, bait the switch, and then super poison again. It takes a while, but with the super poison hitting Frigi for 180 damage each, the fight is my shortest Frigi fight yet. Now I can begin the final level up fights, beginning with Wesley. Wesley looked a bit intimidating with his own Krona, but he only ever targeted Tricera, even after I took out his Krona, so I was just in no danger at all. Mr. Ozolit was also no issue, mainly because he had a team of all fire. That leaves just Sorehead, who's more threatening than usual since he has both Guan's 90% attack boost, and he can move first since Krona has so much health. Sorehead's first move is an Earth Spear on Nazor for half, so I heal and then get Krona hit with another Earth Spear for about half, which is terrifying. I remove Guan immediately after, and then heal Krona with Nazor. With Guan gone, Sorehead can no longer do any meaningful damage, especially since I can just heal it away. So Krona just takes their time to finish off Sorehead's team. Now that I'm at the end, I can revive 2 more Vivosaurs from Rivet Ravine, Alio and the pay-to-dig site Angato. I also revive a single Mammoth head from the shop, because why not? Alio has pretty good stats and no negative support effects, but only has 2 damage-dealing attacks. On top of that, Alio is a close-range attacker, so Krona and Elasmo easily beat them. Angato has pretty much the same issue as Alio, except Angato does have a third attack. However, that attack's poison chance is too low for me to rely on it over Krona and Elasmo's straight damage. Mammoth is only level 1 with Plesio-like support effects, but does have a low cost move and the health recover ability like Seismo. Mammoth may have been useful in the beginning, but it's just too late for them now. Now it's time for the Sorehead 5. For the fights, I bring in Delta over Nazor since I wanted to both conserve Nazor's experience gain and use Delta's FP Plus ability. The first fight was Sorehead's neutral team, which also happened to be the only fight where anything interesting happened. Throughout the fight, Sorehead's Jara was just being Jara, constantly putting my Krona to sleep. So I confused Neo with a Delta Blitz, hoping that Neo would use up FP to stop Jara from attacking and just let me take them out with Krona. Then, the unexpected happens, and Neo uses Law of the Jungle, which siphons away ally health to heal the user. Neo took away 212 health from Brachio, leaving them at just 1, all to heal 57 health. I mean, I still got to stop Jara from attacking, but that move was just so funny to me as I watched Brachio's health plummet. After that, it's an easy fight with Jara and Brachio going down next turn, and then Neo a few turns later. All of Sorehead's other teams lost in the same way. Just inflame, water spout team skill, and then finish off any survivors. There's really not much to say. The Dinomatans on the Dinorian ship weren't any different. Turns out inflaming a Krona team skill with a Tricera boost is really powerful. So now I can access Secret Island and my last revival, Proto. Proto has amazing defense boosting support effects, as well as the ability to transform into a second Tricera. Being able to switch between either great defense or almost doubling my attack is incredible. So Proto is definitely one to keep in mind. Next comes the Raptin fight, and I start by hitting Raptin with a Krona Bite and snapping Jaws for about 3/4. For some reason, Raptin only attacks Tricera with his Reaper's Wrath, who's immune to the poison because they're in the SZ, and then Raptin switches for a Dinomatin and uses their team skill. I just barely fail to take out the front Dinomatin with Krona's team skill before Raptin returns, uses another Dinomatin team skill, and then himself falls to a snapping Jaws. Tricera survives a Heartless Fury into the Parting Blow range, and then I finish off one Dinomatin with a crit Krona Bite, and the other with a Running Smash from Tricera. Next is Dynel, and I decide that this fight is where I'll bring in Proto. Since Dynel totals to over 1,000 health, I get to go first and lightly scratch Dynel with a Krona Bite. Well, since it doesn't look like Dynel's going down anytime soon, I prep one of the Dinomatins to fall to my team skill. However, I then lose Krona the turn after. Now, Proto is forced to the front, and takes an SZ Heartless Fury for over half. If the Dinomatin had just moved forward first, I definitely would have lost Proto. Now I can transform Proto into a Tricera and fully heal them at the same time. I defeat the last Dinomatin with a Tricera combo from my original Tricera, take an Imperial Wrath, and then finally get to use my favorite air-only strategy by hitting Dynel with a Super Enrage. Now Dynel is unable to hit me, so I can just leisurely finish them off in 3 turns. All that's left is the Ganache fight. However, since Proto didn't go over so well last time, with me losing Krona and all, I trade them out for Delta. This is to help me both enable my powerful team skill to win faster, and also to keep Gweep and Galith in check with their whirling displacements, as there's no way Proto would survive after one. However, for some reason, Gavorn is only interested in attacking Delta, so I can easily take out all of Ganache's team at the same time after just 2 water... Wait, I thought that Super Quickens raised evasion by 70%. 70% of Gavorn's 10 evasion is 7, totaling 17 evasion compared to my 34 accuracy. So why did that miss? Yeah, the wiki says 70%, so what happened? It didn't matter in the end, since I can just defeat Gavorn next turn with a Whirlpool, but maybe I have to reconsider Quicken's usefulness. Anyway, Ganache once again explodes, and I beat Fossil Fighters with only Water Element Vivosaurs. Okay, this run was way more difficult in the beginning than I expected, and then became super easy as soon as I got Tricera. Also, that start with Knickknack was just the worst I've ever had. At least the problems in my fire-only run ended quickly. That Knickknack fight could last up to 30 minutes for each attempt, only to then lose to a lucky crit. None of this went as I expected it to, and it's not going to get any easier going forward. Next video is fossil fighters with only neutral Vivosaurs. And there's no way it won't be the worst nightmare of them all, right? Well, we'll just have to find out next time. Remember to vote in the channel poll to determine what videos I'll make next, between size only, class only, and diet only. That's it for this video, so I'll see you next time. Later.